Hello and welcome to third grade. I'm your teacher, Mr. Ritenour, and it is Friday. Although it does not feel like a Friday considering we've had this whole week off. Anyway, it is technically Friday, and so I'm going to ask you some trivia questions later in today's lesson. Couple updates. One, I bought a program called Screen-O-Matic, which allows me to basically do what I've been doing with you, and that's you can see my computer screen while I'm talking to you through this webcam. But I bought the Pro version, which means my videos can now last a little bit longer, and I'm able to write on the screen, and I'm able to also put like other videos in my videos that you'll be able to hear. So for those of you that did yesterday's lesson on the ACE writing, you might have noticed that while you were watching that video of the mom and the son with the video games, did you notice that there wasn't any volume? Well, that's because I wasn't using the Pro version. So I paid for it, and now any video that I show you, including the videos from today's lesson, you'll be able to hear in your home. So anyway, that's one update. Update number two is I've been watching a lot of Disney Plus, and I finally saw Frozen 2. It was amazing. I understand all the hype around it now. Frozen 2 actually might have been better than Frozen 1. So Olaf makes me laugh. I can't help it, but he's so funny. Anyway, what else is new? Let's see. Oh yeah, I decided I was gonna rip up all the grass in my backyard. So right now it looks like a disaster. I use this thing called a rototiller, which your parents know. It's like a giant machine that rips up the ground. So I spent a couple hours using it, and now I can barely feel my back today. It's like, oh, it hurts so bad. But anyway, that's kind of been my life. I really, really liked the pictures that your parents have sent in of you working and doing some stuff outside of school. So please keep those coming. I love seeing pictures of you guys at home, whether they're serious learning pictures or funny, silly pictures. I miss you guys, and I really hope that school gets back here in another week. But anyway, let's not dwell on that. Let's actually turn our attention over to U.S. history today. So as you can see, I have a slide up here that says the Mexican War. That's where we left off in class last week. So if you remember, as we're going through our U.S. history, we've got a very split country right now. All right, it's the mid-1800s. There's a big split over what issue? Does anyone remember? I'll give you a hint. The North and the South disagreed. Does that help you? If you're thinking slavery, you are absolutely right. Our country is very divided on slavery. In the middle of the 1800s, slavery in the South really has driven their economy. All right, slavery has allowed farms and plantations, which is just like a giant farm, to thrive because you have plantation owners that are able to have free labor, right? That's what slavery is. The African Americans were being forced to work. Okay, so that's going on right now. Another big thing that's going on is our country is moving westward. If you remember the name for that, it was Manifest Destiny. And that's more of a high school word, but lock it in your brain. It might come back to help you. But that was the idea, Manifest Destiny, that it was the United States' God-given duty, yes, I use the word duty, to expand from sea to shining sea. So if you remember, we finally were able to achieve that goal through the Mexican War. And the Mexican War happened primarily in what's now Texas and down all the way into Mexico. And it's really the stage, the setting of the stage for who will soon become the major Civil War generals, including, as you can see on this slide, including you got Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant. They're all major players here in the Mexican War. Okay, now fast forward, new stuff. Next major event in U.S. history, we've got the gold rush. So exciting. Maybe you have panned for gold before. I know that there's a cool place to do it over in Clarion at a restaurant slash gift shop slash, I don't know, fun place called the Farmer's Inn. You can actually pan for gold. So let's take a ride back in time to 1848. All right, so follow along as I read, okay? Let me get my highlighter out. So it is an incredibly exciting time in America during the mid-1800s. Gold was discovered in, any guesses on what state? Think about it. What is the largest, or sorry, not largest, but the most populated state in America? Which state has more people? If you're thinking East Coast New York, you'd be wrong. It's actually on the West Coast. The answer is California. All right, so California is where the gold rush took place. So a year after the Mexican War, this is all happening, okay? Tens of thousands of people from all over the country and the world came to get rich quick. The idea of finding gold and becoming instant millionaires attracted men and women from all different walks of life. That's just an expression that means people from all over the world, all different religions, all different cultures. So they all flocked to the rivers and streams of California, you remember, which created a huge melting pot of culture, religion, and community. A melting pot is whenever you just throw ingredients in, okay? So you've got Asian people, you've got African American people, you've got white people, you've got Spanish people, you've got Mexican people, you've got Christians, you've got Jews, you've got Muslims, you've got atheists, those people that don't believe in anything, and you also have even Buddhism and Jainism, which are mainly practiced over in Asia. So anyway, all these people coming in, well, they're going to have some effects that are still visible to this day with, once again, California having the most diversity and the largest population in the United States. So California has more people of different cultures, that's what diversity means, than any other state. And they're also the largest. Very few actually succeeded in getting wealthy off of gold, but the overwhelming majority found a new home on the West Coast. So let me show you a quick picture here. That is called a gold pan, and they literally scoop up water and they'd get some rocks and at the bottom, and they would shake it out, and then they'd be able to spot any shiny gold at the bottom. Here's an ad for the gold rush. So San Francisco was kind of like the hub of the gold rush. It's where a lot of people flock to. I'm going to show you a video here in a second of the guy that actually struck gold first, and it also explains a little bit more about the gold rush. But let's scroll down really quick so I can show you my timeline here. So the Mexican War ends in 1847, and by 1848 the first gold is found at a place called Sutter's Mill outside of San Francisco. 1 year later, word spread and thousands of people flocked to California. These gold miners were nicknamed the 49ers. All right, my sports fans, what's San Francisco's football team called? The 49ers is absolutely right. The San Francisco 49ers. All right. A year later, California becomes a state in 1850. So right now they're just a territory. They become a state, even though they're above that Missouri Compromise. Remember that line we talked about earlier? Utah and New Mexico are added as well. So California becomes a free state. Utah and New Mexico are given a chance to decide their own fate based on popular sovereignty, which basically means the people that moved into Utah and New Mexico got to vote. All right, they got to vote on whether or not they wanted to be free or slave. So this whole gold rush thing, it happens very quickly. Within 4 years, the gold rush is over. $2 billion worth of precious metal was extracted during these 4 years. 2 billion with a B. That's a lot. It's a lot of gold. So it happened really quick, but it's one of the most iconic time periods in U.S. history. All right, this is whenever you have those Wild West towns, you know, where you have the cowboys walking out in the middle and they like stick them up and they're like, this town ain't big enough for the two of us. You've got the saloons where they're playing cards and poker, and they're doing like all kinds of tricks with guns and lassos. I mean, this is like the era of the cowboy, all right, the gold rush. And surprisingly, as popular as that is, you know, it doesn't last very long. And the reason why it kind of ends is not just because gold is running out and people aren't finding it, but you'll see there's also a major event about to happen in U.S. history, all right, called the Civil War. So we'll get to that in a second. Let's take a moment to watch this video on the gold rush. I think it'll help you understand.
Don't overpay for Adidas. Wikibuy can save you money. It's a browser extension that automatically...
Okay, this is just an ad. Let's skip it. There we go.
The California Gold Rush. Gold was first discovered in California by James W. Marshall at Sutter's Mill near the city of Coloma, California. The story goes back to 1848. James was building a sawmill for John Sutter when he saw something shining in the river. They both tested the metal. It was gold. Soon, the word got out. It was no longer a secret. Not many Americans lived in California, but that soon changed. By 1849, thousands upon thousands of people arrived in search of gold. The journey to California was dangerous. Some would go by sea from the East Coast or on land along the California Trail. These people would become known as the 49ers. One way to find gold was to pan for it. Miners would sink the pan into the water and shake the dirt away to reveal any gold. Miners needed a lot of equipment, including a mining pan, a shovel, a pick, and food supplies. Businesses who sold this equipment to the miners often became richer than the miners could ever be themselves. Wherever gold or silver was discovered, miners would move in and set up camp. These would often grow into boom towns, which would become deserted once all the gold opportunities had dried up. So, was the gold rush worth it? Some became wealthy, but most returned home empty-handed. Subscribe to see more fun history videos. Get simple.
All right. Okay, so back to our video here. Or sorry, back to our gold rush here. Hopefully after watching that video you realized that being a gold miner was not an easy life. I mean, they kind of showed in the animation them sweating, working hard. It was not an easy living, and a lot of people sacrificed everything to find gold that they never ended up finding, which is kind of sad. But it's a very adventurous time of U.S. history. It's a time that, you know, really shaped the future landscape of America by sending so many people out west to California to find gold. So let's take a look at another lesson. We're going to do 2 today. Lesson 24, setting the stage for war. Now, what war do you think we're setting the stage for? You're right, it's the Civil War between the North and the South. As you recall, the Civil War, civil means within your own country. So civil refers to the North versus the South. All right, so we've got a picture of Abraham Lincoln here. And in 1860, Lincoln gets elected president. This is what he looks like, all right? I mean, he's not a spring chicken. He's not super young looking. But in just 5 years, now this is right before he gets assassinated, look at the wrinkles. Look at how old he looks in this picture. All right, that's because he probably had the most stressful presidency of any president, all right? Just because of what was happening in our country. So let's set the stage for the war, okay? Follow along with me as I read. It's no secret that America is divided. What has caused our promising nation to be split? Anyone? Slavery, you're right. Slavery, is it legal? Well, according to our Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of, anyone remember? Happiness. Some of you remembered that. I'm impressed. The founding fathers did not include a word about slavery, right? In the Constitution. They were afraid that if they did, it would tear our country apart when it was most fragile, in its infancy. That means at the very beginning. Nearly 100 years later, a century later, a much stronger nation needs a solution. The time for compromise is over. How can you be against slavery but still allow it to happen? How can you see African Americans being treated like property and call this country the greatest place in the world? How can America be a, quote, free country if only half, 50% of its members are free? These are the questions the American people of the 1850s are wrestling with. A younger politician from Illinois is about to change America forever. He will go on to pay the ultimate price for his courage and leadership. Abraham, Lincoln, very good, is elected president in 1860. He's elected on the platform, that's his ideas, to abolish slavery. Abolish means what? What does it mean if he wants to abolish slavery? Think about who Lincoln was. Abolish means get rid of. Very good. Within a few months, the entire southern half of the country decides to secede. What does secede mean? Well, it means to leave. Not physically, right? You can't just break North Carolina off from the United States, right? But secede means to leave the government. They form their own country called not the United States of America, but the Confederate States of America. They even elect a president and have a government that's just like the North, the United States of America. There's only one difference. Slavery was, what do you think? Legal. President Lincoln and the Union is another name for the North. They could not allow the Confederacy, which was the nickname for the, you guessed it, South, to just leave. Abraham Lincoln was left with no choice but to declare war on his own countrymen in what will eventually be the bloodiest war and the darkest hour of American history. Now, we're not going to talk about the war yet. That's next time. But let's just look at a quick quiz here. So question number 1. I want you to try to answer these before I answer them, okay? What issue caused our country to be torn? Torn means broken. Politics, industry, slavery, or farming? Take a guess. What do you think? All right. If you said slavery, you are absolutely right. Slavery is the big issue that's causing our country to be torn. Number 2, who was elected president in 1860 under the promise to abolish, that means get rid of, slavery? Was it George Washington, Frederick Douglass, Jefferson Davis, or Abraham Lincoln? Very good. It was Lincoln. Now, before I click on it, you should be thinking to yourself, A, George Washington, he was the first president, all right, back in 1788. Then you've got Frederick Douglass, who you may or may not know. He actually was alive during this time period, so he would have been a good guess, but he's also an African American, and you know there wasn't an African American president until just recently with Barack Obama. C, Jefferson Davis. Well, Jefferson Davis I put on there because he was also elected president in 1860, but he was elected president of the Confederacy, and he did not want to abolish slavery. He wanted to do the opposite. He wanted to promote slavery. So that's why Abraham Lincoln is the correct answer. Now, what did the South call themselves after they left or seceded from the USA? They had a name for themselves. Were they the United States of the South, the Southern States of America, the Confederate States of America, or the Confederate Slave States? If you're thinking B, you're absolutely wrong. Nope, it's not the Southern States of America. They were Southern states, but they weren't called that. They were actually called C, the Confederate States of America. The North, the Northern states, they were nicknamed the what? The Lincoln States, the Union, the Confederacy, or the Republic? Think about it. We just talked about it earlier. The Northern states were nicknamed the Union. I think this might be our last question. What war was declared in 1861 that pinned the North against the South? The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the War of Northern Aggression, or World War I? Very good, the Civil War. Now, I grew up in the South. I actually grew up in Virginia, and I actually one of my family's friends, he was an older fella. He would never call the Civil War the Civil War. He'd always call it the War of Northern Aggression, because there are still some Southerners that are a bit bitter about the Civil War. Some of them are good people and others are not. But the technical name is the Civil War, even if there are some people in the South that want to call it the War of Northern Aggression. All right, so very good on that quiz. I just want to show you a fun video. It's kind of an animated video here of what we just talked about. So sit back, relax, and enjoy it.
Balancing comfort and trying to save energy can be difficult. The T9 Smart Thermostat can help with its smart.
Causes leading to the Civil War, the road to division.
Wait, not the small town in Missouri?
What is it about a bargain that makes us get a little crazy? We love getting a great deal so much that we don't always care how we get it.
Oh no!
Or who gets it for us. In 1860, the North and South couldn't agree on much of anything. The North liked to hang out in cities, while Southerners were partial to their plantations. The North liked making stuff, and the South preferred growing stuff. On top of that, the North's economy was in high gear, while the South's was dependent on pretty much one thing: cotton. And that brings us to the biggie: slavery. The South was counting on cheap, free labor to harvest all that cotton, and weren't crazy about Northerners nosing around in their business. Then that troublemaker Lincoln gives a speech saying the government had the right to halt slavery. He later adds that it shouldn't be allowed to spread to new territories either, which ticks off the South even further. After the Republican Party nominates the guy for president, the Democratic Party splits, when much of the South withdraws from the Democratic Convention.
Come on, Fluffy, let's blow this pop stand.
After Lincoln wins the election, things get interesting in a hurry. Decades of tension between North and South were set to blow like a science fair volcano. Several states threatened to leave the Union,
Georgia, let's skedaddle.
forcing Lincoln and his buddies to think fast. By the end of December 1860, South Carolina has had enough. As a last-ditch effort to keep the country together, the Crittenden Compromise is proposed to continue slavery where already practiced.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But that doesn't work either. Within 2 months, 6 more states are ready to bolt, and the you-know-what is about to hit the fan. The seceded states form a separate union called the Confederate States of America and elect Jefferson Davis as their first, not to mention their last, president. Slight problem: it's not recognized by the U.S. or any other government. Lincoln refuses to recognize the Confederacy.
I can't see you.
But tries to reason with the seceded states.
We got candy over here.
Meanwhile, that Stevens guy is appointed vice president of the Confederacy. He says the cornerstone of the Confederacy is that blacks are unequal to whites, and that slavery is their natural condition.
It's just the way it ought to be.
Tensions increased over several months, leading to the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter. After a 34-hour bombardment, the Union fort surrenders, and the Civil War begins. Buckle up, soldiers. It's going to be a long 4 years.
All right, so hopefully that video gave you a better idea of what the country's looking like here in 1860. Next time we get to U.S. history, we're gonna actually talk about the Civil War and a couple of the major battles. It's really exciting stuff. I'll give a shout out to Evan and Lucas. I know you guys are big history buffs who love learning about this, especially you, Evan. I remember you dressed up as a Civil War general earlier this year, so I'm pretty excited about that. Let's end today's lesson with some trivia. All right, so question number 1. Let's see. Okay. Back at the beginning of U.S. history, there was a very famous Native American woman who ended up marrying a European man and going back to Europe. Does anyone remember her name? There's also a Disney movie made after her. The answer is Pocahontas. If you got that, give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, next trivia question. Let's see. What invention created by Thomas Edison really helped us see things in a better light? Hint, hint. The answer is the light bulb. The light bulb. Very good. Okay, switching gears here. Let's see. A Louisville Slugger is a type of what? The answer is a baseball bat. It's a type of baseball bat. Let's see. Which is bigger, a teaspoon or a tablespoon? tablespoon it is. A tablespoon's about 3 times as big as a teaspoon. A couple more questions. Let's see. What type of wood is often referred to as the strongest wood? Especially if you're using the expression, my word is as strong as oak. The answer is oak. I'm sure some of you got that one. And last trivia question. Let's see. Okay, I've got one. So it is March, which means it's about to be the start of a new season. Actually, today is the first day of this season. Spring, very good. It is the first day of spring, March 20th. All right, so I just want to say one more time that I miss you guys, and I hope that these videos are helping. Today's video I know is longer, but for all I know, we might be having to do longer videos here and very shortly if we don't go back to school. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but as of right now, the plan is to go back after next week. So fingers crossed. I'm praying that that's what's going to happen. But if it doesn't, we need to be prepared to log in and have maybe hour-long videos each day so that we can have proof that we're still learning, okay? Because the worst thing that could happen is we don't do anything, and then we have to come back in the summer and have summer school. So anyway, I hope that you guys are having some fun at home. I thought it was going to be nicer out yesterday than it was. At least it was warm. Let's hope that today it doesn't rain and it stays warm. So, all right, guys, I am signing out. Go tell your parents what you learned.